The elevator doors closed with a soft, indifferent sigh, and with that sound, Michael Carter felt the last thread of hope slip through his fingers. He stood alone in the marble lobby of a towering glass building in downtown Chicago, his resume folded too many times in his trembling hands, his shoulders heavy with more than just rejection. Outside, winter wind scraped against the windows like a reminder that the world rarely waited for people who were already behind. Michael had come believing this interview could change everything. He walked away knowing it hadn't. What he didn't know was that, in a few heartbeats, the most powerful man in that building would come running after him. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that one moment can change a life forever, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Michael Carter was 38, a widowed single father of two, and exhaustion lived permanently in the lines of his face. His wife, Rebecca, had passed away 3 years earlier after a brief, cruel illness that drained their savings and shattered his sense of direction. Since then, life had been an endless series of compromises. He worked nights unloading trucks, mornings driving for rideshare apps, and afternoons helping his 8-year-old son Jacob with homework, while his 5-year-old daughter Hannah napped beside them. Sleep was a luxury. Stability was a dream. Still, Michael believed that if he could just get one real opportunity, something steady and dignified, he could finally breathe again. That belief had carried him into the headquarters of Hawthorne Industries, one of the largest technology and logistics companies in the United States. The building itself felt intimidating, all steel and glass, humming with quiet confidence. Michael had worn his only suit, slightly outdated but carefully pressed, and he had rehearsed his answers while riding the bus downtown. He told himself that honesty and hard work had to count for something. The interview, however, unraveled quickly. Michael's resume showed gaps that were hard to explain without revealing the painful truth of his life. His voice shook as he spoke about responsibilities that went beyond the professional world. The interview panel nodded politely, but their eyes drifted, already measuring him against smoother candidates with uninterrupted careers and polished confidence. When it ended, Michael knew before anyone said anything. The polite smiles, the rushed closing, the practiced tone of finality all pointed in one direction. He thanked them, stood up, and walked out before his disappointment could spill into something humiliating. As he crossed the lobby, Michael's mind turned immediately to his children. He calculated bus fare, groceries, rent. He wondered how long before he would have to explain another disappointment to Jacob, who already pretended to be braver than any child should have to be. Michael pushed the revolving doors and stepped into the cold, pulling his coat tighter, ready to disappear back into a life that felt increasingly narrow. High above, in a corner office overlooking the city, Thomas Whitaker stood frozen beside his desk. Thomas was the billionaire, CEO of Hawthorne Industries, a man known in business magazines for his sharp instincts and relentless drive. He had not planned to sit in on interviews that day, but a last-minute schedule change had placed him quietly at the back of the room during Michael's session. Unlike the others, Thomas had not been distracted. He had noticed the way Michael spoke about responsibility, the way his eyes softened when mentioning his children, the quiet dignity with which he accepted the interview's outcome. Something about that resilience struck a nerve Thomas hadn't felt touched in years. Thomas had grown up poor in a small Ohio town, raised by a single mother named Margaret, who worked double shifts to keep food on the table. Success had lifted him far from those days, but it had also insulated him. Watching Michael leave, shoulders slumped but spine unbroken, reminded Thomas of a truth he had buried under decades of achievement. Talent mattered, yes, but character mattered more. Without thinking, Thomas grabbed his coat and moved faster than his security team expected. He ignored the elevator and took the stairs 2 at a time, his heart pounding with an urgency he couldn't quite explain. By the time he burst through the front doors, the wind cut sharply across his face. He scanned the sidewalk until he saw Michael halfway down the block, walking with the quiet defeat of a man used to carrying loss alone. Michael heard footsteps behind him but didn't turn. He assumed it was just another passerby, another life brushing past his own without consequence. When a firm hand touched his shoulder, he flinched, already bracing for another disappointment. He turned, confused, staring into the face of a man he recognized instantly from magazine covers and news articles. His mind struggled to reconcile reality with exhaustion. What followed changed the course of Michael's life, not because of wealth or power, but because someone finally chose to see him. Thomas didn't speak to him as a CEO or an authority figure. He spoke as someone who recognized struggle when he saw it. He acknowledged the outcome, but questioned whether failure on paper truly meant failure in life. He asked about Michael's children, about the weight he carried, about the kind of work that mattered to him. They stood there for a long moment, city noise rushing around them, two men from different worlds connected by a shared understanding of sacrifice. Thomas made a decision that went against every corporate habit he had cultivated. He offered Michael not a handout, but a chance. A role created specifically to use Michael's practical experience, adaptability, and resilience. It wasn't glamorous, but it was meaningful, stable, and full-time. More importantly, it came with flexibility for a father who needed to be present. Michael accepted in stunned silence, emotion pressing hard against his chest. He didn't cry there on the sidewalk, but something inside him finally loosened. For the first time since Rebecca's passing, he felt seen not as a liability, but as a human being worth investing in. The months that followed were not magically easy, but they were different. Michael worked hard, learning quickly, proving himself not through polished words, but through consistency and integrity. His supervisors noticed. His colleagues trusted him. At home, the change was even more profound. Jacob slept better knowing his father would be home in the evenings. Hannah laughed more, her world suddenly steadier. The small apartment felt warmer, filled with cautious hope. Thomas watched from a distance, quietly satisfied. Michael's success reminded him that leadership wasn't about maintaining distance, but about recognizing potential where others overlooked it. Hawthorne Industries didn't crumble because of one unconventional hire. If anything, it grew stronger, infused with a culture that valued humanity alongside profit. Years later, Michael would look back on that day as the turning point that saved his family. Not because a billionaire intervened, but because someone chose compassion over convenience. He taught his children that failure was not the end, that walking away with dignity mattered, and that sometimes the world surprised you when you least expected it. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you that hope can arrive in unexpected ways, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with others, and stay connected with our channel. Stories like this deserve to be felt and passed on. Before we end, we have one special request. Please comment below with the word hope if you believe second chances can change lives. Michael Carter's life did not become perfect, but it became possible. And sometimes that is the greatest miracle of all.